Oh, what? Here you go.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. Once you go on vacation, you forget everything.
Are you back from vacation mode?
I don't know.
We're about to find out.
We're about to find out. So one of the things that oftentimes I think this is almost like a basic. When I talk to, when we call engagement, when I talk to folks out there that are trying to start Agile, they oftentimes say, hey, where do I start?
Yeah.
Well, what do I need to do? And one of the things I actually look at is, do they have a backlog? Do they have a product they want to build? And things like that.
Yeah.
And then we talk about product owners.
Oh, good God. Product owners. Yeah.
So then the question comes out, it's like, oh, okay, a product owner.
Yeah.
Well, who is a product owner? What do they do? Why should we have a product owner?
The product owner is probably the most underserved role in Scrum out there. Everybody talks about Scrum Masters, everybody talks about the team, but the product owner, I feel like product owners get no love.
So is product owner only tied to Scrum?
Well, the role, the title, if you want to call it, yes, it's tied to it. But the activity or the action that they do, I think it's essential to just about any type of any team that's trying to work in a lean manner. You need somebody who is, like, I call it the funnel, leading in. I know Bob Galen calls it the single ringable neck. I've heard that one before. I've heard RJ say that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you need, I think that one person, and I say that very lightly because the Scrum, let's stay with the Scrum framework. The Scrum framework says it's one person, and they're the funnel.
Right.
Single ringable neck, which I understand what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to, the product owner is giving the vision for what it is that the team is building. But I feel that the definition of the role and the expectations of it are probably almost superhuman.
So we look at it in terms of traditionally what's out there today. We have BA, we have project managers.
Yes.
I don't know what else you call them. Those two names often crop up. Whether they are a project manager or a BA person, and oftentimes they become the product owner.
Yep.
For me, I usually see them as a very crucial role to have, and the work that they do, there is so much to do that they can't do everything. In the product ownership realm of world. Yeah. So there's a separation of product managers and product owners, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the definition, they're supposed to, a product owner, one person, is supposed to keep the backlog healthy, which is writing stories, refining it with the team, working directly with the team during a sprint, answering questions and such. And then they also have to work with stakeholders and customers or clients. I mean, you're asking this person to divide themselves in 3 ways that's probably will require one full person for each one of those, if not just working with stakeholders and such. It's superhuman. And a lot of these folks, in my experience, I've seen people who have been given the product owner role, but then they also have their full-time job, which might be, I'm a BA, or I'm a project man, or I'm doing something else. And it's like, wait, you're not doing these people a service. You're making these people suffer.
Right. So that's a good point. So let's talk about, what do we expect a product owner to do? What is we talk about them being the single ringable neck. What is it that they do? Is there a one sentence in your mind that describes what they do? What is the most important thing that they do for the team, I guess?
Well, if I were to, we should just go back and forth on this one. If I were to say one thing that I would define them as, and I'm going to go with the cliche because that's what's coming to my mind, is they establish the vision for the team or whatever it is that they're building. And that's what I would open up with if I was talking to somebody who is a product owner candidate. Is you establish the vision, and then we would go into further detail from there. But there's many different views on what it would be. If you were to talk to somebody from who's trying to be a product owner, what would you tell them? Like, just to kind of give them an intro, like, hey, I'm curious, what's a product owner? What do they do?
So to me, I do like to eat. So for me, is the product owner feeds the team. They are the one that brings the food, in my mind, to the team, right? So to me, a backlog is nothing but an input and output system, right? So the developers are the one that work through those things, created. So you got to feed them, right? So the product owner then feeds the developer. Here's things that we want you to work on. The developer then work on those, then they produce an output. So I see that as, they are the what, right? They define the what, developer will define the how. So if somebody would ask me today, I would say, yeah, they feed the team, right? So I think that's how I would look at it. And I like the way you put it too, right? So I'm not sure if there's any other way to make it any clearer.
I like the metaphor, and I want to ask you a question based on the metaphor. I think we could go a lot of places with that. Is feeding the team. What happens, or what are some of the things that you can look out for as a product owner if you're not feeding the team? Like, what happens?
Right.
What can you look out for?
Yeah, so you know me, you work with me well enough to know that when I'm hungry, I'm angry.
Angry.
So that's me. And then I do crazy things. Everything goes out the door because I'm hungry.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's true. I am a witness of that.
So I think it's the same thing for teams as well. I think we have to feed them healthy food.
Yeah.
Your backlog has to be healthy enough. You gotta have enough food for the team. If it's, they have to be full.
So like crappy stories or stories that don't have enough info can lead to a little bit of disgruntledness.
That's right.
Yeah. Not enough stories in the backlog?
Not enough stories in backlog.
I guess that would call a question for, do we have vision left? Are we, where are we going in 4 or 5 sprints from now? Kind of.
I think you can take it into similar to one of the things that you talk about, the Walking Dead scenario. Where, food is crucial.
Yep.
For survival.
Yep.
And you have limited amount of food.
Yeah.
If you run out of food, now you start doing crazy things.
Yep.
Right, and then it becomes to, what are you giving up? Are you giving up humanity, for food? Are you killing for food? And what is it? How far would you go for that?
Yeah.
I think that's important enough for us to distinguish that, hey, it is important for us to feed the team. We need to figure out how to feed the team. If there is no vision, we don't know what we're looking for, then society itself breaks down.
It's funny that you say that, is feeding the team and keeping it going. And I think there's the misconception of, in Scrum, or in even some frameworks, it's like, well, you only need to have X amount of sprints ready to go. But what we're saying is like, don't be short-sighted, keep an eye on the future, and have these things projected out there.
Right.
And I, as a former developer, it's kind of comforting to know that, okay, these are some of the things that are out there in the future. If I'm working on something that's really painful, oh, look, there's a really cool feature I've been wanting to build for a long time. It gives me a sense of hope and happiness. And
in Scrum, I think we start calling them maybe 2 years ago, when now there are more mention of backlog refinement. Right, so that's looking at the backlog. Let's say if the backlog is healthy, let's try to get about 2 to 3 sprints ahead.
Yeah.
So you have this sense, and I think there's not just 2 to 3 sprints ahead, but also at a higher level, maybe a step further than that. Maybe looking at 6 sprints, maybe looking at a quarterly of what's coming, a notion of idea of what's coming.
Yeah.
I think if we have that, I think what I see is that we become comfortable and we are at ease.
Yeah.
So I'm at ease because I have a job, I have money. That money allows me to buy food.
Yep.
When I don't have a job, when I lose my job, I don't have money coming in now, I'm starting to, getting unhappy, getting worried, starting doing crazy things.
Yeah. Yep. And I think the same can be said about teams. A healthy backlog is very important, and that's just one aspect of what the product owner does, but I think it's a very important one, because that's where things are getting produced.
Okay.
If you don't have a good input, Or if you don't have anything coming into the team, then you're not really putting anything out. You're not delivering any value.
So let's talk about other things about a product owner.
Yeah.
Okay. So in Scrum, we have all these ceremonies.
Oh, yeah.
Where do we see the product owner fit in? Do they just sit on the side, create this backlog item, here a team just start throwing at them, go, here you go, take it. But what else do they do? I mean, as part of Scrum, I guess.
I think if we're talking about Scrum, I think that the most important, there's a couple of events that they play a pretty critical role in. Going to what you were saying earlier is backlog refinement. I think that the product owner is front and center during backlog refinement. And it depends how you run your ceremony, who's orchestrating it. The Scrum Master might be orchestrating it, but the product owner needs to be talking about the product backlog items and giving the details and answering the questions for the team. If they're not there for refinement, you really can't do refinement. Or they can't be doing drive-by refinement either, where it's here's the stories and now they disappear.
Right. So at backlog refinement, we expect the product owner to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So to be available. Where else? Well, let's talk about daily stand-up, the daily Scrum. Do we expect to see the product owner there? And if so, what is their role?
I would say that their role is a chicken in the case of the stand-up. And maybe I'm a little bit liberal in what I'm going to say here, but I don't know if they need to be there for every single stand-up, but they should be there for a majority of them, because a lot of good questions come out from daily stand-up. And rather than, okay, I'm going to go find my product owner and hunt them down and ask a question. If you're a product owner and you can make the time to be there, you can answer the question right there, and the team can immediately start working on it right from getting out. But you don't have to be there all the time, but I'd encourage it.
Yeah. So it's highly recommended for product owners to attend daily stand-up, recommended. The only fallback is that, one, the daily stand-up is not a status meeting.
No.
So a potential dangerous trap, I would say, if you start going to the daily stand-up and if everybody's talking to the product owner, providing the status, almost to say what we did and things like that, and then that's a wrong behavior.
Yep.
So the team should carry forward with their daily stand-up whether the product owner is there or not.
Yep.
Daily stand-up is for the team, not for a product owner.
I encourage product owners that go, I'll usually ask them, stand in the back with me or away from their field of vision.
Right.
That way they're not turning and facing them.
Right. And they should be the one that's kind of navigating and having the team talk, right? It should be the team members that talk about it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so daily stand-up is one. Let's talk about sprint planning.
Sprint planning, well, that's an interesting one, because at the beginning of sprint planning, by the book, they're just presenting the backlog. The team is picking and choosing from that backlog. You probably need them there because there's questions that are going to arise of priority. Plus, I see sprint planning as like the grand negotiation.
Okay.
Because a team member or the team might want to pick item number 6 on the backlog. Well, product owner can argue, well, wait, what happened to numbers 2 through 5 in my backlog? I would like to get those because this is the value. So it's a constant back and forth.
So is there a format that you see how sprint planning is done?
As far as like a
flow.
A flow.
So is there a flow as to, hey, for example, product owner gets up there, present the backlog. Here's items that is in priority. I would like these things to be done, A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Yep.
Open up the team, and then kind of step back, and then let the team take over.
I think so. I think it's important for them to show the snapshot of how they've prioritized it, how it's ordered, that it's ready to go. Again, at that point, they're feeding the team. But it's important for them, step back, because the team is responsible for building the sprint backlog. But step back, but don't step away, because there is going to be that negotiation between, there's some things that the team might bring over that the product owner may want to question. And I think that a healthy discussion around that, you build that relationship that we all understand we're trying to build the right thing.
Right. So one of the things that I see that's different and even being taught by the trainers that's out there today is that sprint planning is when you're estimating, when you're doing all these things, and it takes 4 hours to run in sprint planning. For me, it's not. For me, there is a separation between a backlog refinement, where you're refining the stories and get it to the point where it's ready to be pulled in to a sprint.
Yeah.
And when you go to sprint planning, it should be just, hey, let's look at the top 5 things. If we can take 5 things in for this sprint, it should already be well refined, ready to go. Are we pick the first item? Are we full? Nope. Pick the second one. Are we full? Let's go down the list until the team feels they're full.
I agree with that. And things that I've seen, like lessons learned,
Yeah.
I've been part of sprint plannings where we show up, we do size, and then we talk about it in detail. And now actually the team sometimes would go into the process of subtasking. And you're talking about a sprint planning that lasts 6 hours.
Right.
It would be extremely painful. But I've seen the optimized model where spend a little extra time in refinement. Sprint planning is like exactly what you were saying, which is almost the commitment based.
Yeah.
Bring stuff in. Do we feel full? Great. Let's break. And then as the team consumes those sprint backlog items, that's when they'll do the tasking or breaking it down or do kickoffs. Right. So it's not a 6 hour just slog fest. It's like they break it up in little increments.
Okay. Right.
So I actually have a question for you, Richard, about sprint review, because this is something I've run into. Should a product owner wait until the end of the sprint or in sprint review to accept stories? Because that is a misconception I've seen in the community, is that some product owners will actually wait until the very end of the sprint before they start going through it.
So work is iterative. So in my mind, we're getting things done throughout the whole sprint. Mm-hmm. So there's no value to accept the story and to see the story at the end of it, because then it's a bottleneck.
Yeah.
What if it's not what you're looking for?
It's going to roll.
It's going to roll. It's going to go into the next sprint, and that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it should be at a point in time, in my mind, the work should be, let's work on the first thing that is the most important one, get it done, move on to the next one. Yeah. As soon as you're done, Mr. Product Owner, which I'm hopefully are very engaged, are either sitting close by or are really easily accessible to the team, and they can look at it right away. So that's how I see them. I think that's critical to ensure that work flows in the right way.
So PO early and often.
PO early and often.
That's a rule to live by.
That's a rule to live by. Yeah.
Excellent.
So we talk about that. Anything else about spring review? I mean, what does a PO do?
I mean, they also, one of the things that a product owner can do in sprint review is, if you've got stakeholders in the sprint review, is talk about what's coming up next.
Right.
Again, we started off with establish the vision for the team.
Right.
They also have to communicate that vision out to the stakeholders. So giving a high level look of, this is where we're going to be going in the next 1 to 2 sprints. This is what you can potentially expect.
So almost like showing a progress.
Yes.
So this is the word that I really don't like, right? It's almost like a status report at that point.
Oh my God.
So you want to connect the dot up front and say, hey, here's what we committed to, here's what we got done, to a point where we projected, here's the 6 sprints that we're doing if we can. And then say, hey, where are we in line with that? Are we going to get that? Because guess what? Stakeholders, what do they care? It's delivery. Hey.
When am I going to get my stuff?
Right. And if you're doing it every 2 weeks, that's great. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it every day, power to you.
Yeah.
But most organizations don't do that. Sometimes we can't do that. But it's always good to set that vision, set that progression of how things happen.
Yeah. You're constantly touching base with them. You're giving them feedback as much as you're getting feedback.
So what else? I mean, so we say about the PO. The PO is being, creating a backlog, set a team going, and then show up at sprint planning in the morning for like maybe 10-15 minutes, and then they do stuff at the end. What about in the middle of it? What do they do?
I've never done this before because I've never been a product owner, but I would imagine you've got to be building this backlog that you're going to feed the team.
Right.
Hopefully you're not building it in a void, but you should be having the conversations with maybe clients, depends on your organization and how it's structured, clients, customers, maybe even internal stakeholders within your organization to establish that vision or that map of or that line of food that you're going to be giving to your team. And I think that's, I don't know, to me, that's probably the most cumbersome part of the product owner role is taking all these different inputs and making something of it.
Right.
And saying no to some of it sometimes.
So they're making something of it. They get all this information in. They're now creating the story, and the story starts somewhere.
Yeah.
At an epic level, you're writing it down. You're doing this breakdown of the flow of the application. You're trying to figure out what feature to do, what things to put in, and that breakdown, see whether it makes sense. So not only are you doing it for your sprint, if you're doing your backlog refinement really well, and you're looking ahead enough, you should have enough. You should be looking 2 to 3 sprints ahead anyway.
Yes.
So at that point, you're getting ready for second and third sprint coming up. So you're making sure your story is ready for backlog refinement, making sure your next sprint is covered, making sure the sprint after that is covered. So getting on that's continuously working on things. So it doesn't mean like you got nothing to do.
Right.
Right.
You're staying busy. You're feeding it. One of the things that I wanted to add to what you were saying, that I don't want to forget, because Henrik Nyberg just says it so perfectly in his video, is that the most important part that a product owner can do as part of that process, and I mentioned it very briefly, is saying no.
Yeah.
I think a product owner, you're gathering all this information from all these folks, you're building this roadmap out, but you can't be a revolving door of features, because guess what? Your vision is going, you may have a vision, but what the end product is going to be is just a bunch of modules cobbled together, and it's not going to have any kind of coherent sense. Say no.
No. And that interesting, that's the most difficult part, is saying no.
It's very difficult. Again, going back to a product owner is almost expected to have this superhuman capability of doing these 3 things and then telling people no. It's not easy to do sometimes.
So what skill set should a product owner have? I mean, this person has to do so many things. I mean, for a software world, do they need to be a developer? Do they need to know the technical side? I mean, what do they need to know?
I argue no. I don't think that a product owner needs to know too much technical, because I think that they're a representative of a customer, and a customer doesn't care about the technical world. The less that a product owner knows about the how, the better, because you want your engineering team to be driving how we're building it. Product owners should just be focused on the what, and that's the key that I would recommend. You're focused on the what we need to do to solve a problem. That is all. How we do it doesn't matter.
So it's a what, not the how.
Correct.
So, and this is often we see times where product owner struggles because they have a technical knowledge, they want to share the knowledge, they want to almost manage the team and into the how, and that's the dangerous zone to get into. So and I agree with you, and I'm kind of the same way, that I actually prefer a product owner that has no technical knowledge, but just enough knowledge to use the product that they're trying to create.
Yeah.
Right. I think from the end user standpoint, how do I use this product?
Yep.
I think I like that more, because now I know what I'm going to deliver. What is it that we want?
And beware, the teams sometimes will, even with Scrum Masters, we've had teams that want us to be technical, and it's like, no, it's not.
Right.
I'm going to be hurting the team more than anything else if I get into the weeds.
Right. So does a project manager, there you go.
Ooh, that's a fine. That's $2.
Does a product owner dictate how much work a team should take on?
In a sprint?
In a sprint.
Ooh. And I think they present, this goes back to the sprint planning aspect, is that they present the backlog and the team ultimately decides it. Now, I'm always in favor of a product owner. I almost did it. A product owner.
Bad influence right here.
Of a product owner trying to push for more in sprint planning. I'm okay with that, because again, I was talking about sprint planning being the grand negotiation. It's okay. Get a little greedy. Hey, can we what about this thing? See if the team will push back and say, no, we're full. This is all we can really get done. You're looking at the interest of building the product. Why not?
Okay.
Get a little greedy.
Okay. All right. So what else is we can talk about product owner?
I don't know. I think that we've covered the 3 aspects. There's probably so much more that we can discuss. like division, like how do we've talked about them being a superhuman and having to do all these things, right. But how do we alleviate that? That may be a topic for another session.
Yeah. So I think we just touched about this. I think product owner is one of those roles that, in my mind, that is not mainstream enough, where almost the words that we use is that they don't get as much love.
They don't.
In the Agile community. Oftentimes we talk about the Scrum Masters, the Agile coaches and things like that, but product owner is very critical.
Yep.
If anybody would ask me where do I start, I would say product owner.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a product owner, the team can't do the work. They don't know what to build. So
there's no food.
There's no food. This is useless. Scrum Master can't help you at that point. Right? So I think that is critical. And I do, I want to applaud those of you that are doing product owners that have been doing a great job. And we recognize it's a tough job.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing what you guys do, in my mind. So
I think that the product owner role, I think Scrum Master went through, it's very mainstream. Everybody understands. Yeah. Like the arguments that we made 4 or 5 years ago that it's a full-time role, et cetera. Right. People have gotten it. But now I think that we're now just starting to get to that point with the product owner role and having those discussions and people giving it recognition. So I'm hoping that the tide is turning and things will change. And those of you who have been product owners up to this point, I mean, tip my hat to y'all. I know it's not easy.
So for those that are interested to become a product owner, what resources is available to them?
I would start looking at, I always tell everybody, look at the manifesto, the 4 values and the principles, but Roman Pichler is huge.
And I'll provide a link to his site.
Mike Cohn too, because Mike Cohn was a former product owner. He's got really cool stuff. His blog's got all kinds of great ideas to look at and learn.
Bob Galen's book on product ownership.
Yes.
That's a great resource.
Absolutely.
Because those 3 things, is, in my mind, will be a lot of information to get you started.
Yep.
So I think that's a good wrap.
I think we gave product owners some love today. I'm happy about it.
Awesome. All right. This is Master Asian Call.
And C-Rod.
Bye.